So this workshop is prepping for the stage. Don't forget to smile. This is the last workshop in our series of 4 before our big finale. You guys can still see the screen, right? Okay,
Yep.
mine disappears for some reason, so just making sure. So my name is Hannah Yazdi. I'm going to be presenting for all of you today. The goals for our presentation today is we're going to go over cadence and emphasis. So how to choose what your audiences focus on, right? Your body language. We're going to talk about awareness of your body and adrenaline, keeping your composure. We're going to talk about maybe a few memorization techniques at the end, but that's not really what I want all of us to focus on right now, because I think that when we're giving speeches from home, I don't think that, memorizing everything is the biggest deal. Here, we're kind of just more trying to share a story, share a message. So take what you will from that. Our guest speaker today is Sadiq Yazdi. He is a distinguished Toastmaster, so DTM, that's the highest level you can reach in Toastmasters. He's been in Toastmasters for 12 years. And he's going to be kind of reinforcing some of the information we go over today. As I'm presenting, I'm going to ask him some supplemental questions. And if any of you were here with us last year, that's what we did with Elise Peterson. Went really well. I love kind of having this conversational style when we present. So we're going to go ahead and do it again. And feel free to ask any questions. And at the end, he's going to go ahead and just talk to us about what he learned in Toastmasters and kind of help reinforce our learning, like I said, and talk about everything we went over, and kind of give his 2 cents on what he thinks is important regarding practicing speeches, because who's better to know than someone as experienced as him. So let's go ahead and get right on into it. But before we do, I'm going to go ahead and have Sadiq introduce himself. Sadiq, if you want to go ahead and take yourself off mute and introduce yourself to our group, that would be great.
Thank you, Hannah. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me join this group today. As Hannah said, I'm a Toastmaster. And for those of you who don't know what Toastmasters is, it's an international organization with many clubs, members practicing basically public speaking. And it's very structured. It's got its projects that you follow, and then you go through different stages and you get awards. It took me 12 years to get what they call Distinguished Toastmasters, but I learned a great deal from that organization. I'm still currently a member as well. So thank you for having me over, and I'll be more than glad to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
All righty, perfect. Thank you for that introduction. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Let me go like this. So let's talk about, let me actually hide this really quick because I'm pretty sure you guys can see this little bar, if I'm not mistaken. So I'll move that up there. Alrighty, so body language. So how to choose what your audience focuses on, right? So let's just address something. So we have 2 levels of speakers in here, right? Some of us are advanced and some of us aren't, and that's totally okay. So in the beginning part of this presentation, we're kind of going over some tips that may apply to people that are new at speaking and people that aren't. So go ahead and take what you will from each one. It's totally okay. Oh, it says sharing is paused. Can you guys still see my screen share?
Yes.
Oh, weird. Okay. Anyways, so these tips are from Dhananjaya Hediarachi. He's the 2014 world champion of public speaking. They actually call it Olympic public speaking, which I think is super funny. And he has multiple gold Olympic medals in public speaking. So he has a lot of good stuff to say. I enjoy watching his speeches. I learned a lot from them. And so real quick, so let's just address the elephant in the room here. The audience is going to be focusing on you, right? They're going to be watching you and they're going to be analyzing you. And your actions and your words are going to be what the audience focuses on. So when we say that, we're talking about you, right? So your drawing attention has to be purposeful. And the analogy I like to give is, think of a magician drawing your eyes somewhere specific so that you don't look elsewhere, right? So a secret's not revealed. Like, you can purposefully draw your audience's attention to something specific. So we have to be purposeful with our body language. And so whether that be using your body language for techniques to do stuff on purpose, right? Like using your hands to drive home a point, or to keep yourself from doing stuff. So something that a lot of novice speakers do is kind of crunch over and like cover their vital organs. That's just kind of something innate that humans do in general. And so that's kind of what I mean by you have to be purposeful with your body language. You're either going to use it for something intentionally or keep yourself from doing something. And it's at this point that I wanted to pipe in and ask our guest speaker, what kinds of body language is useful and helps drive home a message, and what kinds of body language is perhaps not helpful and, is too much body language distracting. And I wanted to ask this because something I notice with newer speakers is when they don't know enough about body language, they kind of try to force it and they're using too much of it. And that's something I wanted to make sure that we addressed early on. And I have made that mistake before, which is why I wanted to bring that up, because sometimes people are doing too much of this and they're going like this and they're putting their hands up here. And then your audience is like, what are you doing? I can't see your face. And then it gets distracting. So why don't we go ahead and go over that really quick?
Thank you, Hannah. I don't know if you guys can see me, but yes, too much body language is not good. As we all know, hand gesture and posture is very important to your delivery of your speech. So while using your hand, you can overdo it, as Hannah said, or you can, especially when you put your hands in your pocket or you put your hands behind you, those are a no-no. And, it's just that keeping your hand, it drives the message a little bit better. Now, walking is another body language that we use. Don't stand still and try to just move a little bit. I remember I was in a speech contest at Toastmaster and I invited my boss. And I delivered my speech, and at the end, he gave me a comment. He said, Sadiq, you never stopped walking. You went from one end of the stage to the other rather rapidly, constantly during your speech. And the audience had to turn their head the entire thing as I was doing my speech. So what is that? That is really a sign of nervousness. So use your hand gesture, just be moderate, and don't keep them just straight down or behind you or in your pocket. That would really help deliver your message a lot better. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. That's really good information. I'm sure all of us have been in like a speech class or two, and everyone knows that if you put your hands in your pockets, they're going to stay there. So let's go ahead and try to be cognizant of that. Let's go ahead and go next. So 4 ways to be purposeful with our body language. Just go ahead and continue here. So when you get nervous, kind of like Sadiq just said, you cover your vital organs. You put your hands, not even just your vital organs, you kind of do whatever with your hands. They get glued somewhere. But a really common thing we see in new speakers is they cover their vital organs. So they kind of cover their stomach, put their hands kind of around their stomach and whatnot. And like he said too, folding their hands and bringing your hands in front of them, pacing a lot. These are all signs of nervousness. So after that, like you said, those are some of those techniques. And so something that he brought up too is something that a lot of speakers do is kind of crunch their bodies, right? I'm going to move my camera so you guys can see a little more visually. We kind of go like this, right? And we're holding our little note cards. We're going like this. Like that. And so what I wanted to go ahead and ask, because I do that a lot, right? We need to practice keeping our posture good, right? Keeping your back straight, keeping your body open. But sometimes it's a little difficult to remember to do that in the moment, because especially giving a speech, if you're new, that could be really nerve-wracking and your mind is on your content, right? So what do you do to practice so that you standing up straight and keeping your body open comes as second nature? So that's my next question to you, Sadiq. What are some techniques that our speakers can practice to keep their bodies open and their postures high instead of, bending over like little gremlins?
Thank you, Hannah. I don't know if you guys can see me, but I say that always watch yourself. I know some people say don't look in the mirror, but deliver your speech or do it in front of a mirror so you can see yourself, and always remember that when you're at the stage. One thing I would say is even if you don't want to do it in front of a mirror, a better way rather is to record yourself. Record yourself and watch your body. In fact, record yourself and watch it 3 times, at least 3 times. One time, just turn off the audio. Turn off the audio and watch yourself delivering that speech. Second is turn on the audio and don't look at your speech. Just hear yourself talk. And the third one is, of course, combination of both. And if you can watch more, you can watch more. But trust me, by practicing in front of the mirror or looking at your recorded video of your speech, you always remember that what you did and what you didn't do during your speech, and that helps you. It's just practice and watching yourself doing it. I say that's the best thing to do.
Thank you. Yeah, all of those are definitely really good notes. I appreciate that. Sometimes it's kind of hard to remember to practice in the first place. I don't know if any of you are procrastinators like me, but I've definitely been in speech class and the night before I'm like, I can do this, right? And then you get up to do the speech and in your head you're like, I can't do this. So why did I do this? So all of the nitty-gritty aside, remember to practice your speech. I see a lot of nods. I can see we've all been in the same boat. I think that's hilarious. I just want to point that out. So let's just remember, practice your speech. It's a big deal and it shows. I'm sure all of us know that. And I'm sure Shada can attest to that. It shows when you practice versus when you don't practice. So let's go ahead and move on. So I kind of wanted to talk about anxiety really quick. Let's go ahead and just like really attack. Oh, actually, you know what? I think I skipped something. I'm gonna go back. I apologize for that, everyone. I skipped a little bit of the content here. So we went over that. So something I wanted to say, this is for our more experienced speakers. So if you're a more experienced speaker, you can go ahead and tune into this. If you're a newer speaker, definitely like listen to this and get to know it. But this is not something that necessarily is going to affect you that much in your early speaking career. But I want to do a little exercise really quick. And we did this last year and I loved this. I loved everyone's reactions to this. So I want everyone to pull up your hands. Okay, show the camera your hands. Hi, everybody. Oh, really good, doing little high fives. Okay, so I want everybody to look at your palms. Okay, just look at the palms of your hands, right? Okay, and now I want you to look at the back of your hands. Okay, just like that. Really look at them, like really look at them. This is funny. And now look at the palms of your hands again. And now look at the back, right? And now if I asked you, what side of your hand relaxes your eye, which side do you think it is? Because everyone always has the same answer. And science has backed up the same answer. There's one side of your hand that relaxes your eye more.
In my case, it's my palm.
It's your palm. It's the palm of your hands. The palm of your hands relaxes the eye. And that doesn't just go for you and your own palms. It goes for everybody, right? And you guys can tell it with me, right? So like, I'm gonna go like this. Just look at me. I'm your speaker. What looks more like, hi, like these are my palms, right? It looks better to look at the palm of someone's hand. So that's the next tip that Dhananjaya Hediarachi focuses on. And I've noticed this in his speeches. He does do this very adamantly, and it looks nice. It works well. Good speakers open their palms toward the audience because it creates an openness. So if you're back, I guess I can go back here. If you're using your hands as much as you can, if you can angle them down so that the audience sees your palms rather than going like this, because naturally we want to do this. This just feels more natural to our, the anatomy of our bones, keeping your hands up straight. But if you can go like this just looks better. This creates like an openness. Like I said, it looks better to the eyes of our audience members. So try to avoid showing the back of your hands if you can, right? That's a small thing, but it's an important one, in the higher levels of speaking. And like I mentioned, just don't use hand movements at all. If you're a brand new speaker, it's going to be, time has showed us that it doesn't work out in anybody's favor if you're brand new and you're trying to use hand signals. So the third thing that I want to go over is, if you can, this doesn't really affect us with Titan Talks this year. It will in the future. And then this is more relevant for any speakers that are interested in doing TED, but get comfortable with your stage. So let me ask you a question, okay? Would you feel more comfortable recording a speech in your bedroom or in front of 300 people, in a live audience? What do you think you'd feel more comfortable doing? I would obviously feel more comfortable in front of the 300 people. I'm just kidding. Of course I wouldn't. I would feel more comfortable in my bedroom. Okay. So I think that goes for everybody. And so lucky for us, we can perform in a bedroom this year, but like 90% of the time you can't. Okay. We do not have that luxury most other times. And so when you have a speech coming up anywhere else besides your bedroom, practice on the stage, should you have that option, right? When you're comfortable with the stage, your body naturally opens up, and that's what I think is so interesting. You know, your body is going to naturally constrict when you feel uncomfortable with the stage or when you feel foreign on the stage. But when you don't, and when you're used to where you're standing, you naturally present open. And so, you know how earlier we were talking about what can we do so that our body naturally opens, how we keep our natural high posture. This is one of those things that works really, really well, getting comfortable with where you're speaking. And so if you've ever taken like a speech class or whatever, or maybe you have one coming up, ask your professor. You're going to seem like a little weirdo, but be like, can I hang out here after class alone? Right? And then you just walk around the front. And I say this because I did this. I did that. I was so nervous to give a speech in this class. I was a freshman, so a few years ago, or last year, I mean, and I did that. And I stayed after class and I practiced in the front of the room, and it helped so much. It really, really did. So I can tell you from personal experience that that works. And the last thing, as you can see, number 4, I say don't touch the podium. And the reason I say that, and I more mean don't like glue the front of your body to the podium, you know, because this, like, as soon as you do that, you're going to shake it and you're going to lean on it and you're going to grab it. And all of that is bad. Should you have a podium, of course. You need your hands to gesture also, right? If you're going to be a speaker that chooses to do that. And so keep a respectful and healthy distance between you and the podium, and keep your notes on it. And so keep your notes on it. And obviously, if your notes are on it, you're going to be touching it here and there. So I don't literally mean it's lava, don't touch the podium. Just don't use it as a crutch when you're speaking. So let's go ahead and talk about, we're going to switch gears here. Let's talk about being aware of, you know, your body composure and techniques and whatnot. I'm sure everybody has heard the saying, what's the number one fear in America, right? Everybody give me a little nod. Yeah, everybody knows what the number one fear in America is. It's public speaking, right? How funny is that? That is public speaking. So it's public speaking. It gives people anxiety. Public speaking gives people anxiety. That's just how it is. And when you get anxious, you need to find ways to compose yourself, right? Because obviously you don't want the audience to know that you're anxious. So I'm going to tell you about the 3 sources that academics tell us underlie our anxiety. So let me go ahead and show you here. These are the 3 sources that research tells us underlie our anxiety. So if you can decipher which of these 3 things scare you about public speaking, then you can better practice exactly how to tackle this specific anxiety. And so I'm going to go ahead and give you some tips from Dr. Matt Abrams. He is one of the top speech and communications professors at Stanford University. And he has given numerous TED Talks. And so I find his tips to be very, very supplemental, very helpful. So the first one, which is definitely my source of anxiety, is situation-based anxiety. So we are nervous for speaking because of the context or the situation that we are in. So what does that mean? So raise your hand right now, any of you in the room, or just think about it, you know, raise your hand if you have talked to anyone today about anything. Who has spoken to someone today? Maybe you haven't if you haven't left your room, literally, but if you've spoken to someone, raise your hand. Okay, I see some raised hand icons. Okay, so everybody has talked to someone today, unless you're a hermit and you don't leave your room, which is equally just as fine. But most of us have talked to someone. So there you were in that situation, talking to your mom or your cousin or whoever in your living room or your kitchen. And I guarantee that at no point during that conversation were you nervous, unless you were and you were talking about something super nerve-wracking. But for the sake of my argument, you weren't nervous, right? But what if right now I called on one of you, okay? And I said, hey, I have some time to kill during my presentation. I totally just lost my notes. Can you, announce to the however many people there are in this room, like 15, whatever, people about what your conversation was about? What if I just called on one of you? You don't know who I'm about to call on. Now that might make you nervous, right? So why you're nervous isn't the topic. You're not nervous about what you're talking about, but it's the fact that you're giving a presentation, right? So academics tell us that the reason that situations make us nervous is because we see them as a performance. We're performing. And that's why we call it performance anxiety, right? But in speaking, there is no right way and there is no wrong way. There's no right or wrong way to get an idea across. But, there are certainly better and there are certainly worse, but there's no one right way. So what we want to do to get away from this performance anxiety is we need to reframe the situation in our brain. So rather than seeing it as a performance, okay, we see it as a conversation. All right. And so that is called cognitive reframing. This technique is called cognitive reframing. So that simply means that in our brains, we are going to relabel our performance so that we see it as a conversation. Considering that, like we just went over, most of us don't get nervous having conversations, but we do get nervous about performing, right? So how do we make our speeches conversational? Like, what does that even mean, right? So there's two main ways. So when you're practicing your presentation, practice in a physical environment like you would when you're having a conversation. Okay, so around a dinner table, around a coffee table, right? You talk to people in casual settings, so go to a casual setting and practice your speech. The second one is use conversational language. This is an important one. So many speakers feel like when they're speaking, they have to be very formal in their use of language. And they say things like, one must consider the ramifications of, like, no one talks like that. Like no one talks like that. Don't talk like that, and don't write your speech like that. In conversation, we say things like, this is important to you, right? You just use conversational language. And so it's at this point I want to reach out to Saudi again. So what do you think of these two tips, i.e., practicing in a casual setting and using this conversational language? And then do you have anything that you'd like to add as to how to cognitively reframe?
Thanks again. You covered it very well, Hannah. So the only thing I would add is be careful with the conversation style. Yes, it is good, but don't make it too conversational, too easy, right? You don't say, like, for example, oh, you bet I did. You don't say that. You say, like, come on. You say, of course I did. But I'm just saying that be careful with the conversation style. Yes, conversation style is good. And it depends, of course, on the topic of the speech and your audience, of course, because at times we do need to talk formally and have a formal speech. So the type of speech does matter. And then, of course, practicing the first one you said about what now? Practicing in a comfortable environment.
Yeah,
Yes.
comfortable environment.
So do that. And then how many of you, by the way, get more nervous if, let's say, a family member is in the audience when you deliver your actual speech? I cannot see everyone. I don't know why. I just see Hannah, but some of us do, some of us don't. For example, in my case, I don't like it when a family member, my wife, my dad, my mom are in the audience. I get nervous. I get more nervous. So when you're practicing your speech, just think about, visualize your audience and picture yourself talking to whoever you think, or whomever you think gives you a better comfort and increases your comfort level. So visualize those and deliver your speech practice your speech in that environment. Thank you.
Yeah, that's really good. And yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because it is very true. You don't want to treat your audience like they're your best friends, and obviously it goes without saying you don't want to say anything that doesn't age or point. You don't want to curse or anything, in a professional speech, so avoid that stuff. And so that's really good. Yeah. And that's another really good point too. Picture your audience as someone you're comfortable speaking in front of. I'm the same way. I feel a lot more comfortable speaking in front of strangers. If I had my choice, I would practice in front of strangers rather than in front of, people that I know. I don't know why that is. So I guess my source of anxiety is not the audience, which we're going to go over next. And so hopefully we're all learning a little bit about ourselves right now. So on that note, let's go ahead and go to the next source of anxiety, which is audience-based anxiety, right? So who is it I'm speaking in front of? So our audiences vary. Okay, they vary in the knowledge of your topic. They vary in their relationship to you, and they vary in their relationship to others in the room, right? This, obviously for Titan Talks, they're not gonna know all that much about your topic depending on what it is. Their relationship to you is going to be pretty pretty uniform amongst most of us. We're all friends and acquaintances, and then their relationship to others in the room is the same. But obviously, with different speeches, that all varies, right? Because it's totally different giving a speech about who you are versus giving a speech to a ton of doctors, as a doctor. I apologize for that. Giving a speech as a doctor to a ton of doctors, that's something that my mom does a lot. And so, they vary in their knowledge of your topic, right? So that's what I mean by that. And then, so it's the audience that can make us nervous. And to address that audience fear is a technique that works really, really well. And it has been studied longer than any other anxiety management technique. And it is called visualization. Okay. Research over 35 years has gone into this technique. And I know I'm going to ask you a question that's going to ring a bell for any of you who have played sports. Okay. So how many of you have ever played a sport where the coach told you to visualize that sport with the ball getting into the basket, or you hitting the ball, or whatever, right? Your coaches always say, picture it. Okay. I played volleyball. My coaches said that all the time. So visualization is when you see something happening in your mind, but you don't actually do it. Okay. Sports psychologists actually tell us that visualization is the second best way to improve your sport. The first way is to practice, if you can believe that. But here's how it works, okay? Before you give your presentation, we went over this a little bit earlier, go into the room, if you have access to it, and check out the environment, okay? Get an experience for what you think is going to go on, who's going to be in the room. So when you're looking out at the seats, picture the audience, okay? So often when you present, the type of audience you're going to face prior, right? You kind of know who you're going to be talking to. And so what this does when you're doing this, what this does is it desensitizes us. So when you get up there to give your speech, it's not new, right? You've seen it before in your mind's eye. You've pictured this before. So this is the key part to visualization, and I want you guys to remember this. Visualization works by seeing the situation and picturing it going positively, okay? Do not picture your speech going as a disaster or the room lighting on fire or something, okay? You need to picture the audience reacting positively to our presentation. And notice, by the way, that I did not say spend time visualizing your performance, because as we talked about a second ago, that leads to performance anxiety. What I said is visualize a positive response from your audience. And like I said, decades worth of research has shown that visualization helps many people feel comfortable and less anxious. And so, yes, it is at this point that I'm going to reach out to Sadig again. My question is to you is, what do you think about these tips, and how has visualization helped you in your speaking career so far?
Sorry, I was unmuting myself. Well, we talked about visualization. You did an excellent job explaining this, but I would say that the positive reaction, I want to focus on that, the positive reaction from your speech. So I visualize myself delivering that speech, and let's say I'm doing it at work in front of coworkers and management. I always ask, think about their reaction positively, like you said, Hannah, and practice your speech. Again, earlier I said visualize doing it in front of anybody who makes you feel comfortable. That is during the actual speech. But like, for example, if you are doing visualization in your head and you're practicing your speech, what I would do is actually visualize my audience, the audience that I'm going to see. And let me ask you this. Isn't it better? Wouldn't you perform better if you do it the second time in front of the same audience? How about the third time? How about fourth time? So if you do practice and visualize the same audience over and over, and especially what Hannah said, visualize that you've done a good job and everybody was happy with your performance, trust me, by the time you go on stage, this would be your fifth or sixth performance, not your first one. So really, visualization really helps with the audience in hand, in front of you, as like they are the real one in front of you, the ones that you're actually going to perform. in front of. So that really, really helped. Visualization is really, really key. And of course, combined with practice. I keep repeating practice. Thanks.
Awesome. Yes, that's all really, really good. I think that's a really good point. You know, the first or second time you give a speech, you know, is going to be a lot different than the fifth or sixth time you give a speech. I can tell you from experience that, you know, this is my second time giving this speech, and I think that I know my content a lot better this time. I've reviewed the content that I'm sharing with you all for the second time, and I obviously reviewed the content and read the resources and stuff that from the tips and from the doctors and PhDs who share this information. And so I do feel a lot more comfortable presenting it this time than I did this time last year, because I know it better, and I know what I say, and I know my flow better now. And so, you know, this visualization stuff really works, you know, so go ahead and try to do that when you're practicing over the next week. And yeah, so it's at this point, we're going to go ahead and move to our final source of anxiety, which again is another very common one, actually. This is goal-based anxiety. So this type of anxiety is focused around what it is we're trying to achieve. So often when we speak, we have a purpose, right? And that purpose is meant to, for example, communicate an idea, or maybe to motivate an audience, perhaps not to get fired. That's a big one, okay? And what about to get a good grade? We're all college students. I'm sure we've all had to advocate for our grades at one time or another, or if you're crazy, a lot like me. So notice that these goals, by definition, are all future focused, right? They're all in the future. And so it's that future concern that makes us nervous, right? So to go ahead and combat that, we need to become present oriented. So if you become present oriented, you're not concerned about future consequence. So what we're talking about here is literally, in the simplest way that I like to put it, is just living in the moment, right? So whatever it is that you do to bring yourself back to the present, to clear your mind of everything except for what's happening right here, right now. Okay, so some examples could be listening to music, or perhaps doodling or drawing. That's what I like to do. Maybe counting backwards from 100. It doesn't matter. Just anything that requires focus will help draw you into the present. And so just for an example, because I know that this is kind of sometimes where I lose people, they don't know exactly what I'm referring to. What I'm talking about is, if you're sitting here right now thinking about your speech, let's say that we're, you know, let's fast forward to the breakout rooms. In a little bit, we're going to be doing breakout rooms, and you're practicing your speech, okay? And you can't practice because you're freaking out thinking about your speech next week. This is what I mean. When you're sitting here thinking about your speech, practicing your speech, and you can't because you're nervous about the speech in the future. That is what I'm referring to. So we're talking about chilling out, bringing it, just take a deep breath right now, just relax, and we're going to try again. We're going to focus on right now, and we're going to try again. And so this is kind of what I'm talking about. So at this point, I'm going to reach back out to Sadik again. So, you know, what do you think about these tips that I named? You know, the listening to music. And I was going to ask if you've ever used this technique, right? And how has it helped you? And what action did you take to draw yourself into the present? So kind of what do you do to kind of refocus and reconvene?
Thank you for that question, Hannah. You know, different people have different ways of relaxing. I like to walk. So I remember at one point I had a presentation to give in front of management. This is just work-related stuff. And my friend came into my office and was like, he saw the stress in me. He's like, what's wrong? I said, well, I have a meeting at 2 and I have this presentation to give. Hannah did mention, know your material. Trust me, if you've given a speech to memorize and deliver, it's completely different than the subject that you wrote and you know about. Knowing your material really helps, but now we're talking about, of course, focusing on the present. And he said, why don't you go for a walk? And we were in Sacramento, right in downtown. So I went walk around the state capitol, a lot of flowers and roses there. Just going around a few blocks and coming back, amazing. It was amazing how that helped. I came back a lot more relaxed. And really, from then on, is just go for a walk is what I tell myself every time I'm in that situation. So that's how I deal with my anxiety. But again, different people have different methods. Whatever makes you feel better, just do it. And it really, sometimes you need to just get away from it and not think about it and come back and revisit. Back to you.
Yes, that's all really important. And I really liked that, take a walk, because studies show that spending 15 minutes outside resets your brain. And whatever, take that as you will, however it affects you, whatever resetting your brain can mean, but it resets your brain. It just kind of does what we're talking about, right? Brings you back to now. And when you're studying for like 6 hours and you just feel like I can't do this anymore, so go for a 15-minute walk next time. And see how that helps you. But I'd like to add really quick before I continue, kind of like how Sadek said, if there's something specific that helps you decompress when you're anxious about anything, maybe when you're studying for an exam and you're getting anxious, or whatever it may be, try that technique, because if you know that it works for you, that will totally apply here. We're just talking about something that decompresses us in this specific moment when we're getting overwhelmed about something. And as we all know, as college students and as normal human beings, there is a long list of things we can get overwhelmed about, right? Especially, things that happen in the future. So I'm sure, hopefully everybody here has a little thing that they do that helps them chill out when things are crazy. So let's go ahead and move on really quick. So where is my anxiety coming from? Let's just kind of review really quick, because I'm sure at this point, and if you're not doing this right now, I'd like you to look at these 3 things and kind of see if you can identify which one of these things causes you anxiety. Like I mentioned in the beginning, mine is the situation, giving the speech itself, being in front of an audience that scares the crap out of me. Right. And then maybe it's audience-based anxiety. You're scared about the audience. You're scared about the fact of talking in front of people, a group of people. Or perhaps it's the goal-based anxiety, right? You're scared about being able to convey your message, drive home that message. Or of course, this goal-based anxiety has kind of 2 sectors. The one that I chose to focus on is prior to giving the speech, which would be, relaxing in the moment when you're practicing. And then, of course, the other part of this goal-based anxiety would be the goal of, presenting the message and whatnot. Each of you can reflect on your own anxiety and identify what source it comes from. And, hopefully we're all thinking about that right now. And I'd like to add that maybe you're thinking, oh, it might be multiple sources. And sometimes it is, but a lot of the research shows that typically with speech anxiety, it's predominated by one of these. So it could be like a small mix, but typically it's one of these that we can focus on and really, really help with our anxiety. And so, try the techniques that we discussed, and hopefully it'll all work for you. And do a little bit of research if you can tell, what source of anxiety it is, and look it up and see if you can find other tips if the ones that we shared didn't work, and see what you can do to help combat your anxiety. Because if you're a confident speaker, it's going to help you so much. I'm sure we all know that. It's so much easier to give a speech when you're not totally scared. So yeah, it's, the next thing that I have for y'all is we're just going to go ahead and talk with our guest speaker here. So this is the point where I'm going to stop sharing. Okay. Now you can see my face again. And it's at this point that I'm going to have Sadek just kind of share his experience as a Toastmaster, because this is the last workshop that we have before we give our speeches. And so this is kind of where I want all the good advice to just flow through. And if any of y'all have any questions about something specific, please feel free to ask it. And let's just go ahead and listen to some stories and kind of hear. And I haven't heard these before, so this will be good for everybody. So go ahead and unmute yourself, Sadek. And if I asked you to prepare some stuff you'd like to share with the group, and this is that time. So go ahead.
Okay, this is the part where, thank you, Hannah. This is the part where I failed to practice. So, no, I was just going to talk about overall, in general, public speaking. As Hannah said, everybody hates public speaking. Trust me, everyone gets nervous. We all stand in front of the audience and feel the butterfly in the stomach, and our legs get weak and our mouth gets dried. And I remember the first time I couldn't even see, even though there were a whole bunch of people in front of me, I could not see a single one. So we all get nervous, but I just wanted to talk about, basic stuff before you do your speech. I repeat, practice, practice, practice. It's amazing how that works and how that helps. Practice in front of a mirror, record yourself if you can, as I said, and then don't read from notes. Try not to read from notes. So in preparation, what I do personally is I do bulleted points and put them on a small piece of paper. That's all I do, because if you rely on reading paragraphs, not only is it, you take your focus away from the audience, but really people lose interest in your speech, because you do need to engage, you do need to talk, you do need to make eye contact. So I'm going to talk about hand gesture. We talked about it earlier. Don't overuse it. Try to hold on, to your straight back and posture. We're doing Zoom. It's hard to do eye contact, but eye contact is very important. When we go back to our regular meetings, it depends, of course. If you're sitting in front of a very large number of people, then it's different. But if you're talking to a small group of people, try to make eye contact. Try to look on both sides and not just, you have your boss on this side and you're just constantly looking, which I have done, by the way, looking on that side mostly. So try to look at everyone. And from time to time, it is okay to talk to just one person. Like when you're trying to make a point, just make an eye contact with a couple of people or 3 people in the audience. Another thing we learned is what we call vocal variety. Don't be monotone. People lose interest. You want to grab their attention back to you from time to time. It's like, for example, as everything was starting to crumbling down, I found a way to solve that. So, lower your volume, raise your volume, have what we call vocal variety. Pitch, rate of speech, don't talk too fast. Some people naturally talk too fast and some people talk too slow. So rate of speech is very important. And don't forget your pause. What we call crutch words or fillers like ums, uhs. I'm a master of that. I used to do millions and now it's in the thousands. I still do it. Another thing is, if you can inject some humor, trust me, that would really make your speech more effective. People like humor, so try to inject some humor in your speech. And finally, I would say personalize. Say something about yourself, some personal story that would definitely make your speech much better. But one thing I wanted to talk about is not every speech, of course, has introduction, body, and conclusion, but a good speech is good speech. But if you have a good introduction and especially good conclusion, solid conclusion, make your good speech an excellent speech. Always do that. Some have the body into categories. 1, 2, 3. So in the introduction, you can say, I'm going to talk about 4 things. This, and this. It'll help map your speech before, because you know what you're going to talk about. Your audience don't. So give them a map of where you headed, really helps. And when you do it, and especially summarize it at the very end, good conclusion always makes your speech excellent.